This is the tutorial for Chapter 27 in your beginning AutoCAD workbook. Okay, in Lesson 27, we're going to work with scaled drawings, adjust the scales within a viewport, learn about annotative objects, and understand paper versus model dimensioning. So one important thing to remember in CAD is that you draw all your objects to full size. No matter how big or small they are, everything is drawn to full size. They get scaled later by creating viewports and adjusting the scales in our viewports. So if we went into one of our paper tabs and we had a view made, so MV for make view, anywhere at all, doesn't matter. So once you have a viewport, then you can adjust your scales for that viewport over here. No matter how big or small the part is, you can zoom in or zoom out to set it up to be able to see and dimension it. If for some reason you don't have the scale you need there, you can use the command scale list edit, and you can add new scales that way. Okay, so the easiest way to understand how annotative works is just to go ahead and use them. So remember back in Lesson 26 we created a text style and we checked off the little annotative box. Same thing with our dim decimal dimensions. We checked off the annotative box. You can tell something is annotative when it has that little scale symbol beside it. So anything annotative is going to adjust to match the scale that you've locked onto that viewport. Okay, so let's do the little exercise that they show us in Lesson 27, page 4. So it says to open your decimal setup drawing, go to your object line layer, create a rectangle, anywhere at all, doesn't matter, 3 inches by 1.5 inches. Then you're going to go into your A size tab, switch to your viewport layer, and we're going to create 2 viewports. So MV, one on the left and one on the right. Okay, so you should have 2 views shown. Okay, so we're going to go into the viewport on the left. We're going to change the scale on it to 1:1. We'll use pan and just set that up to get it centered. And then we're going to lock it in place. Go into the one on the left, change the scale to 1:4. The one on the right, sorry, change it to 1:4. Pan to center that again, and lock it. And double click to activate our paper. Okay, so now we're going to put some text and some dimensions in each of those boxes, each of those viewports. So the viewport on the left, let's start in there. Let's change to our text layer. Let's do single line text. Start point anywhere we want, it doesn't matter. Let's just put it up above. It said height should be 0.2. And we're just going to put scale 1:1. I'm going to switch to my, actually when you're doing that, you should make sure you're on your Annotate tab and that Text Classic was selected as your text style and Dim Decimal is selected as your dimension style. Okay, so now I'm going to put my dimension on. I'm going to go over and do the same thing in this box. My single line text, and I'm going to type it down here, same height of 0.2, scale 1:4, and I'm going to come out here. Okay, so that's what your paper space should look like. Let's look and see what's going on in our model space right now. So you can see in the model space there's 2 sets of text and dimensions. One set is 1:1 and one set is 1:4, but you'll see them both in your model tab. If you put your cursor on any of the text or dimensions, that little annotative symbol is going to come up. If we clicked on the 1 to 4 scale and had our quick properties button turned on, you can see it'll show us paper text height, model text height. Same thing on any of the others. Paper text, model text, and it's the same because it's 1 to 1. If you're not seeing two sets of dimensions and text, make sure you have Show Annotation Objects, that button turned on. If you don't, all you're going to see is whichever scale you have selected over here. So you want to make sure that Show Annotation Objects is turned on. So if an object is annotative, AutoCAD automatically adjusts the scale of the object to the viewport scale. Then they talk about paper versus model dimensioning. So you have the option of if you want to dimension things in model space or if you want to dimension things in paper space. There's pros and cons to both. They say paper space dimensioning, you don't have to worry about your viewport scale. Dimensions will all look the same in your viewports. If you XREF the drawing, you guys haven't done that yet, the dimensions do not come with it. One of the big cons, though, is if you move objects in model space or adjust the viewport scale, sometimes the dimensions don't move with them. And sometimes your dimensions don't appear in the Model tab. They only appear in the Layout tab where you place them. If you go to another Layout tab, they won't show there. Whereas if you use annotative dimensioning in model space, dimensions always appear and move with the objects. Dimensions will appear in all Layout tabs. The only con is if you use an XREF object in your drawing, the dimensions come along as well. Personally, I like using model space dimensioning. Okay, so for the rest of chapter 27, then it switches to your exercise. So exercise 27A, you have to create a master feet inches setup template. So you have to work from A all the way through to exercise 27F. When you're done of it, you're going to save it as your My Feet Inches setup and just save it as a DWG file. That's the end of the tutorial for chapter 27.